Okay, principle 2. That leads me to principle 2. Principle 2 is eat good quality, nourishing foods. There was a time when I thought, in both of those circumstances, in both of those situations, there was a time when I actually thought that was acceptable, that was cool, that was okay. And you may be eating in a particular way right now where you're not fully conscious of it and you think this is okay, but really it probably is limiting you. Our problem lies here. Most people don't know what good quality nourishing foods are. The common way of thinking is unfortunate, because it is that, it's common. It is, the understanding is, we should eat our greens, we should eat our veggies, we should eat more fruits, legumes, nuts, and we should stay away from alcohol and processed foods and sugars and so on. We have that understanding, which is fantastic, and that knowledge is ever present. These are universal, basic, beneficial health principles that are out there. But that's the thing, that's the issue. They're basic. And when you have basic level knowledge and know-how, you get what? You get basic level results. Herein lies the issue. Very few people, very, very few, 10% if you're lucky. When I have conversations with people, very, very few people can confidently and competently tell you what the difference and define the difference between a universal toxic trigger and a toxic trigger. A universal toxic trigger and a toxic trigger. Could you? Most health professionals can't even do this with skill, with confidence and competence. And therein lies one of our issues. A universal toxic trigger is something that causes suffering, pain, and dis-ease within us all. A specific toxic trigger is something that will cause pain, suffering, and dis-ease within me and not you, or within you and not me, or within that person and not me, or within this person and not you. It's specific. It will only cause you an issue. We don't even... This is basic level knowledge. This is nutrition 101, and people do not understand, or at least they may have heard of this, but they can't competently and confidently express what the differences are. And if you can't understand and express that base level knowledge, then you're going to be experiencing the basic existence that the rest of humanity is. And we've spoke about it earlier. That basic existence is just simply going to bring about basic results, and that is sickness, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. But there's hope. You can change that. We can change it. We can delve deeper. We can learn more about mindful eating principles and practices. We can learn about nutrition, toxic triggers, universal, and we should. Here's something that I've experienced over the years. Now, I've been through many transitions in my health and well-being, through health and well-being. I've been at the fucking bottom of the barrel where I've been addicted to food, addicted to drugs, I've overdosed, I've invited lots of toxicity into my life with negative thinking and alcoholism. I've had serious mental health issues. But then I've transitioned into that kind of normalcy, that normal level, that kind of where the majority of the masses reside, that comfortable space. We call it normal, we call it comfortable, we call it anything but alien or anything but odd or weird. At least to us, the masses, it's acceptable. I moved to that state, I transitioned from that really unhealthy state to that kind of normal paradigm, that normal phase. And you could say my ailments got a wee bit better. You could say mentally, physically, I adjusted somewhat. At least from the outside looking in, I seemed to be a normal person. I still had loads of issues, like many, because it's the basic paradigm, but I was getting by. I could go on a holiday, I could operate mentally, I could go to work, I could wake up, I could have some, decent level relationships. I was operating highly enough to conduct my life. But then I moved forward and I started experimenting with mindset, with nutrition, with fasting, with juice cleansing, with movement, with deep journaling, with all these sort of well-being health principles, with the science and wisdom of well-being. And I move forward. Now, I'm not perfect, but I've advanced. And the funny thing is, when you're the masses, the basic, the majority, what they do is they look upon and criticise alcoholics, drug addicts, and the morbidly obese. They see them as sad, sick, and unconscious. And I did when I was in that state. But here's the funny thing, when you advance, when you move forward with it, and you push into a new higher level of existence, of consciousness, of well-being, you look upon the basic, the normal, the mediocre, the masses in the exact same way as they looked upon the junkies, the alcoholics, and the morbidly obese. You see them as sad, sick, and of a lower level consciousness. I'm not saying I'm looking down on people and seeing them as less of an individual. What I'm saying is there's elevations to your game when you experiment and you apply and test and extrapolate this information, because life's a journey and that's what it's all about, and you've got to go into it with that experimental ethos. But there is advances, sad, sick, basic, higher consciousness, and you can find that through the science and wisdom of well-being. And what we're talking about, by eating more mindfully, not mindlessly, by understanding the difference between good quality, nourishing foods, and there are many, many more mindful principles that we could talk about. But just by applying some of those tactics, just by coming on board and listening to this discussion, you've already elevated your consciousness. You're already moving away from that basic paradigm. All you need to do now, there's nothing worse than consuming knowledge and never applying, never acting on it. Speed of implementation. Implement it immediately, as quick as possible. Teach it to someone. Post in the comment box below your favourite point that's been discussed this evening, because that helps to really ingrain it in your mind. Teaching is learning twice.